more efficient way later. Okay, I guess we could get started. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on our latest meeting for the AC3 committee. Glad you could join us. We have some exciting things that we want to talk about today related to making final decisions about the R% for the art spending for next year. So Heather's going to be walking us through some sort of decision points around that. We've already talked about it for the last two meetings, I believe, plus a meeting with the co-chairs as well. And I think Annette's the only one that's able to join us this morning. Hi, Annette. Sean and Thomas had conflicts. And I think a couple other people had conflicts, but Heather, it looks like we might have enough to move forward.
We
Is that right?
do. Yeah, we do.
Great. Yeah, so that's the main thing we want to talk about today. If we have time, we might start the conversation about our approach to membership for the AC3 moving forward. We've been wanting to talk to the group about that for a while. Before I turn it over to Heather to dive in, just a couple of housekeeping notes, or really just introductions. I want to thank Frank for joining us today. Say hello to Frank to be our interpreter. Appreciate you joining us. And I want to welcome Piper to the Zoom this morning. Piper is going to be an intern with the Office of Planning this fall. So thank you, Piper, for joining us. She said earlier that her mic's not working, so we'll just have to imagine her saying hello. As long as we've got a couple of new people here, why don't we just quick go around and do introductions so that they're aware of who's part of the team. And obviously, there are several other members of AC3 that couldn't make it today, but so the group is bigger than this. And we have a couple of members from the city arts team that are city employees, and there are several other city arts team members that are not able to make it today, but we can just go around with who we have here. So I'm Kevin with the Office of City Planning, and we will popcorn this around, and I'll just pick people. So Heather, you want to go next?
Sure. Heather Anderson, also with the Office of City Planning. I'll popcorn this over to Anne.
Good morning, Anne De Silvatella with City Development Projects. And over to Joanna.
Sorry. Good morning, everybody. I'm Johanna Brennan with the City Law Department. And Sabrina.
Your mic's not working, Sabrina. We could come back to you. How about Christina?
Hi, Christina Kaiser from the Arts Collective. Let's pass it over to Amanda.
Hi, Amanda Chestnut, currently from Writers and Books, but also from Rock Arts United. Rena.
Hello, everyone. Rena Golden, Avenue Black Box Theater. Oh, and let's see if Sabrina's back up.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Great. My name is Sabrina Boykin. I'm a member of the City Arts team, and I work for the city for architectural services. I don't know who's Christina. Did you go? Oh, I'm sorry. Amanda? Oh, jeez. Orlando?
Yes, Orlando Ortiz. I'm president of the Puerto Rican Festival, and I'll kick it over to Antonieta.
I don't think she heard. Antonetta?
Hello, everyone. I'm Antonetta. My name sign is Antonetta. Do it with me. Antonetta. Yay! I'm Maleficent. No, I'm not. I wish I was. No, seriously, I own my company called Albano Speaking Ventures, and I'm an advocate, disability, inclusion, accessibility, and from the deaf perspective. And I'm also a nationally renowned aerial performer. So yes, thank you.
I think Annette might be the last one.
Bienvenidos, everyone. Annette Ramos, Executive Director of the Latino Theater Company. And I just want to do a shout out today. Borinquen Dance Theater is opening their very own dance studio, 40 years in the making. So I am just celebrating Hispanic heritage, Latinx arts and culture in my city, because my sister has paved the way for all of us. Ashe, ashe.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, that is very exciting news, and we're sorry that we ended up having this scheduled at the same time. I know that at least Thomas is there. There might be others, so sorry about the conflict. And for anyone that joined us late, the reason why we're doing introductions, we all basically know each other, but we're doing it for the benefit of Frank, our interpreter, and also Piper is joining us. Piper is a new intern with the Office of City Planning. And Piper, if you want to just mention anything in the chat, since your mic isn't working, if you want to mention anything in the chat about yourself, you're welcome to do that. Heather, any other intros or housekeeping that we want to do? Did I miss anybody?
No, I don't think so. I think that's it.
Okay, great. Let's do it. Let's jump in.
Okay. All right, so this is the second of our two budget planning meetings for fiscal year 24-25. Just to review what we talked about, I did circulate notes, but we're going to review what we talked about at the last AC3 meeting. I'll hit the main points, which is that budget has projected that we will have $297,000 for fiscal year 24-25, which is very exciting. We also talked about the goal of setting aside 10% for maintenance. So we talked about a total of $36,000 to set aside from fiscal year 24-25 to get us to that total of 10% for the full percent for the arts funding. And then from there, with the $261,000 left, we talked about the potential split between capital and non-capital art. And really what we were leaning towards was with the big response we had to Arts Bloom, we understand that there should be more money that goes towards the next round of Arts Bloom, so non-capital art for fiscal year 24-25. And then we talked about potential themes for the funding. Youth was a very well-supported theme, but we also talked about the City Mark anniversary, a celebration of diversity, and potentially some combination of those themes. And then we also lastly talked about the How We Rock program, which is a new program being created through communications, in which local photographers will be selected to photograph, document festivals. They'll be given all access passes to festivals to take pictures. And then at the end of which there'll be a show in the City Hall Link Gallery, and the potential for stipends for those photographers and how much those stipends could be, and having those stipends come out of Percent for the Arts as well. So that's what we talked about last meeting. Since then, we have had a meeting with City Arts team and the co-chairs. And so I'm going to kind of talk about some additional discussion points that came out of those meetings. And then we'll break out the draft budget and kind of dive into the details. So one of the interesting things that has come up was the idea that when we said we should set aside $36,000 from the next year's funding for maintenance, we were taking that 10% from the total of Percent for the Arts. but someone brought up maybe that should actually be just from the capital side, because we don't actually need maintenance funding for non-capital art projects. We need it for capital. So that was a point that came up, as well as more discussion around what is the appropriate stipend for the photographers for the How We Rock program, and the need to really discuss that and talk to photographers. I think we'll ask you all if you have any feedback on that, but I think that what we really came to is that we need more research on that. And then just more discussion around themes and the split. And lastly, the idea that for Arts Bloom, for the second round, we want to maximize opportunities for as many people and groups as possible. So potentially having the restriction that an artist or a group can only be awarded one every 3 years. So that's kind of the idea for that. So I'm going to share a screen now so that we can look at a potential. Based on those discussions, we drafted up a budget for fiscal year 24-25, and that's what we want to talk to you about today to kind of really finalize recommendations from AC3. So this is, you see the column highlighted in blue, but I'm going to kind of scroll down so we can really focus on the things that we are talking about. So first, the maintenance set aside. So if we were to actually do the goal of 10% set aside for maintenance, and we were only to look at capital, then we actually already have 10% set aside. So if we're looking at doing 10% set aside from only capital funding, we would not need to set aside anything for maintenance in fiscal year 24-25. And that's kind of the first topic that we want to follow up with you on. Do you all feel comfortable with that, with saying our goal is 10% for maintenance, but looking at the capital percent for the arts funding only for that 10% calculation?
And I have a quick question. Were we able to find out whether or not it might be possible to set up some kind of long-term fund, possibly partnering with RICF to help maintain that money over the years?
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Amanda. Can you repeat that? It's really hard to hear.
Sorry, I have earpods in and they're not great. Did we look into whether or not set up long-term funding? I'll type it in the comments.
Did you say, so you're asking about the potential for long-term funding, right, for maintenance? Outside of percent for the arts? No?
Yeah, she's saying through the community foundation. And Amanda, are you talking about just sort of general funding support from the community foundation, or a more specific, an official fund that could be built up over time? And if we put it there, it would have the potential to grow. Is that kind of what you're alluding to? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We haven't looked into that, but that is an interesting idea. Annette Jimenez Gleason's not here today, but I'll put Johanna on the spot. Is there any precedent for that? Any cautions that you would have from a legal perspective, Johanna, in terms of putting city funds into a financial vehicle like that to grow over time? I'm not sure that we've done anything like that before.
I'm going to take myself off the spot because I'm not sure.
Okay.
Let's answer it that way. Let me think about that. I do have some concerns about it, and it would, the kind of the typical devils in the details. So let me get back to everybody on that.
Yeah, I mean, at a basic level, certainly the idea of taking money and putting it in a place where that money then grows is obviously a great thing. Yeah. But it would just be a matter of whether there there are limitations with how we could do that money and transferring it and that sort of thing. So we can look into the logistics and the legality of that, but it is an interesting idea.
I just wanted to chime in. I think it's also an interesting idea because I was wondering about, what happens sometimes is that maintenance funds are not needed. And so, it becomes this growing pot, even if it wasn't something that was collecting interest. And I wondered about opening it up to allow, a community of artists to be able to apply for maintenance funds for something they may not have had, or, funds to uphold. For example, we have murals that, are on buildings that might be cracking and breaking, or either pieces that have been put up around the city so that we're not necessarily a part of the percent for art. So I know the Avenue has benefited from maintenance funds that were sitting someplace and not used for Art Walk. So we were able to find a way to do a new project with that, which was amazing. But I just think it sounds like a good idea, because potentially, even if the funds were not needed for, or as much of it wasn't needed from year to year, that could be another resource for arts projects around the city, and keeping them up.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Keep in mind that one of the things we'll be looking to get advice on from our consultant for the arts and cultural plan, and ultimately the Rochester Public Art Plan, is that issue of maintenance. And, we're looking for recommendations from them as to how we would fund something like that, how much we should fund. So yeah, we absolutely realize this is an important issue, and we're not going to drop the ball on this one.
Yeah, Chicago has a Latinx community, and the city maintains over 50 murals and art exhibits within that neighborhood. So we can look at other cities and what they do well and replicate it. We don't have to create a new system. We just have to implement an effective system. And then Rena brings up a very important question around art that's already been done, or art that's not within the realm of the city, because if it's in the city, it has a direct impact on the residents and the community, and it is contributing to uplifting our city and it being a walkable neighborhood. So let's put some more consideration into that. And it's also a good way for the city to make right what we've done wrong in the past, which is not acknowledge artists' work and not celebrate their contributions. So I think there are great opportunities for us to heal and then for us to move forward.
Thank you for that. Okay, so does everyone feel okay with having the maintenance set aside be based on capital funding as opposed to the full program funding? Is everyone okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Okay, so the next topic was we wanted to bring up so right now we have a placeholder in the How We Rock line here of 6,000, because there's going to be 6 photographers. And so as a placeholder, we're assuming $1,000 stipend for each photographer. That might change a little bit as we do some research to really figure out if that is the appropriate amount. We did want to take a moment to check in with you all. We recognize that I don't think we have any photographers here, but if anyone has any feedback on that, whether that's an adequate amount or not enough of a stipend, does anyone have any feedback on that amount of a stipend for that work?
I think Amanda put something in the chat that she had some experience with that.
Oh, excellent.
Right? Amanda, are you there?
Yeah. So for me, as a bare minimum, when I was a photographer, I would charge a $300 minimum with stuff that was recorded. So if you're expecting people to show up and write, that's low. If depending on how many sessions you're expecting.
Sorry, Amanda, it's
impossible.
can you put that in the, yeah, Rena asked in the chat if you can put that in the chat, because we just can't hear you.
So I have a couple of questions about these photographers. Are we asking them to cover specific festivals? How many? Because $1,000, like Amanda said, is really lowballing it. Also, the development of the photography, is that included? Because if we want to actually have physical prints, does the city own them? Does the photographer own them? Where are the royalty rights? Where all these elements and equitable engagement is very critical to uplifting our photographers. So it's not just paying them $1,000; it's ensuring that that they cover X, Y, and Z. That they also not only just have a free pass, but there might even be a food budget. You're out at a festival for 8 hours a day. Let me tell you, that is 5 hours a day. I'm exhausted. I have to go home and take a 2-hour nap. So I just want to point that out, that we have to be very specific. And also, and I want to express this, we have to cover more than just the regular or the high-end festivals. We have to go to neighborhoods and communities in our neighborhoods, in our city, that don't get that big publicity promotion. Those are the festivals I'm interested in connecting to and learning about. And then third, there are, at least I know, a handful of festival photographers. I love them, respect their work, they are experts. But I want to ensure that we are uplifting emerging photographers who are young, and maybe even mentor them with professional established photographers. Now you're building a network of photographers who are united and cohesive and working comparatively together. So to me, that is stimulating the creative economy. That's ensuring equitable opportunities for photographers, but also celebrating what the city can do in uplifting them. So being very specific about what they're covering, ensuring that there's equity across that, ensuring that it's not just a dollar amount, but also the marketing, the printing, and the promotion of their artwork. Thank you.
That's great. Unfortunately, Ray wasn't able to make it to today's meeting, but we'll have a chance to talk more specifics. And I've been passing along from the co-chairs meeting. I passed along some feedback, and I'll definitely make sure to pass this feedback to her as well, and try to make sure that she can be at the December meeting to discuss it as well. This is helpful. Thank you.
Annette, thank you so much. I definitely, many of those things I wanted to bring up as well. I wonder if we considered, because the word festivals jumped out at me when I heard you in the beginning explaining what this was. And I wondered, what if we took the approach of treating it like a residency in which the photographers they could actually choose what they were photographing. We could give them some sort of parameters or guidelines around, it being public, it being, just to make sure that it being within the city, those kind of things, but giving them the opportunity to go out and do that versus saying, go cover Park Avenue Festival and, Lilac Festival, etc.
That's great. Okay. Yeah, because that's, sorry, my throat. I spent a lot of time on an airplane. I was away this weekend, and, being on an airplane for 5 or 6 hours, just completely. And then I visited my hometown is in the desert, and it was really dry, and it was 100 degrees in the desert. Anyway, so, yes, that's helpful feedback. And I think that's something that we've heard, right, in the convenings around an arts council, I feel like the need for local residencies has really been something that we've heard from local artists, right? The need for residencies. So that's a helpful note. Okay, so we will continue that conversation again, hopefully with Ray, because she's really working on it. And to answer Antonietta's question, there was 6. The plan is to have 6 photographers during the festival season.
Oh, okay. I actually also work at RIT, and I can see if there's any like POC deaf photographers that are, in training or that are professional. I can look into that area if you'd like me to.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the plan is to have it be a call for photographers, basically. Happen sometime before festival season. So this is early in the works, which is good because I think Ray could really use, the feedback and discussion about it.
Yeah, and just one point of clarification, even though it's kind of showing up here on our budget, this is an initiative that communications is spearheading. They're kind of doing it on their own, but with coordination with us. We've basically offered to contribute some of the Percent for the Arts funds to go towards that, but it's a little bit of a different initiative than, say, Arts Bloom, where the AC3 and the City Arts team are really kind of driving the details of the process and how it gets done. This How We Rock initiative is a little bit, it's not entirely independent of this group, because I think we can advise on it and we're going to provide some money for it, but just want to sort of clarify that's communications is primarily running that initiative.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. And so now to move on to talking about the capital, non-capital split. We had talked at the last meeting about the importance of definitely having capital and non-capital for next year, and the importance of having emphasis on Arts Bloom, non-capital. So we just kind of penciled in some totals here in the third round capital art, 120,000. And then the remaining 171,000 for Arts Bloom, with the idea that capital would likely be one large capital project with the theme. And then the Arts Bloom would be the similar program, but just a larger amount. So similar to our first round call for art. So let's talk about the split. How does everyone feel about that split? 120, 170. Maybe that's a good thing. The silence.
How big of can you guys hear me? Oh my God.
Yes.
How about now?
Yeah, we can.
I can hear you now.
We can hear you.
I can't hear anything. That's great. Speaker system. Okay, now you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Jeepers creepers. I'm sorry. How big of are we thinking that's for one capital project then?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a feasible amount for one capital project, but I'm looking at our budget for Locus Focus right now, and anything less than that would be impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what edged us actually a little bit to 120 as opposed to 100. It was just like, let's a little bit more because, and look, yeah. Okay, well, if anyone has some more feedback on that, feel free to chime in. Let's talk about themes. So I think that there was kind of the most support for the youth theme, of course, understanding. I think we've had interesting conversations around themes, because I think in the follow-up co-chairs meeting, we definitely talked about the desire to not want to set a precedent where we don't want to get in the habit of being prescriptive every round. We do want to keep it open. But that also the acknowledgement that for capital art, we usually do have a theme, right? Because we usually do want to give artists kind of something to help shape a proposal. So that's kind of a normal thing for capital and maybe less normal for the non-capital Arts Bloom side. But how does everyone feel about youth, the potential to combine on the capital piece? What if it were combined city, Mark Anniversary, and youth? Like there were some ideas at City Arts Team that came up around like, hey, youth, what is inspiring to you about the city? And so it's kind of like a youth and city Mark Anniversary combined call.
I'm sorry, what
Um,
anniversary are we saying? I keep hearing a word that I'm not hearing. Is that an acronym?
Oh, so City Mark, it's the city logo. You know, the city logo.
Okay, the actual city. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
I know it's funny. I'm used to hearing logo, but then somewhere communications shifted to start saying City Mark Anniversary instead of city logo. And I actually
Got it.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
And just so you know, communications is spearheading the project for a permanent work of public art, recognizing the city mark or city logo, and that's going to be $100,000 contract, and an RFP is going to be released for that in the next month, and awarded, I think, in December, somewhere around there. So that is a very separate project, but we could recognize that and do something in conjunction, but it is a completely separate public art project.
I'm going to jump in and say that with the current challenges that our youth are facing in this city, we must stay focused on our youth. And if we want to wrap around this logo acknowledgement, let's have them design a new logo. Let's have them play with the logo. Let's have them, Sean Dunwoody has done this many times. But hearing that we already have a budget for the city's logo celebration, to me really means that that is covered and that we must be vigilant in continuing to focus our money, reserves, time, and talent on young people, restorative justice, peacemaking, gang violence, substance use disorder. All of those things we can touch through arts, including the city logo. So I'm just going to advocate and keep advocating that young people need to be our focus until the shift starts to change.
I agree with Annette. I mentioned before that my daughter goes to School of the Arts, and I know some of the art teachers, and I can also connect with them to see if they have any youth that will be great candidate for this. Also, I have connection with Center for the Youth, which is LGBTQIA community, and I can also to see if there's any of their youth that can also participate in this. So yes, I agree that the youth should be, especially minorities, especially that don't have the ability to share their art. And so I think we definitely would connect with that.
Are we thinking about, if we're thinking about making sure that this money is being used on projects that are youth specific, that's going to be really restrictive on the organizations that can wind up participating, because that's going to mean that they'll need to be running background checks on their teachers. They're going to need staff there to supervise, and the wages for staff supervision will eat up a huge chunk of the budget. I'm just thinking, like, when we were thinking about how can we incorporate youth in Locust Focus, we wound up including a encouragement, and our artists are going to do it, but an encouragement to take on interns. But we focused on people over the age of 18 because we couldn't afford, with the $100,000 budget, to safely bring in anyone under the age of 18. There were just way too many costs involved with involving youth in a hands-on way, that we just went between the insurance and the background checks and the needs for supervision and having people there. We couldn't ensure the safety on the budget that we had available.
Yeah, those are some good points, Amanda. I appreciate you bringing that up. And I think, just to sort of tease this apart a bit, I think everyone would agree that the importance of investing in our young people at this point in history is super important. Like there's strong consensus there. It's just a matter of, what does that actually look like and practically speaking. So I think we need to consider the things that Amanda's brought up, but I'm also wondering too, when we say, involving the youth or youth-based theme for capital art, there's kind of two different ways we could look at that. One is that young people are involved in the designing and the creation and the installation of the piece. The other thing is that the subject matter of the piece relates to youth-related issues or themes, right? And it's not necessarily young people involved in the creation of it or building of it, but it's just on the theme of things that young people are facing. Or it could be both of those things. They're involved in creating it and it's a theme. The theme relates to them. So I think we have to sort of distinguish which one we're talking about if we want to involve young people in capital art. The former, the one where young people are involved in the design and building it and installing it, I think can work, but it does introduce some complications with things that Amanda's brought up, but also just in terms of sheer number of people. I mean, typically a sculpture, as an example, isn't created by like a large team of people. It's one person or a small group of people. So how does that actually practically work out if we want to involve young people? I'm trying to think through those things.
So
Yeah.
I have a question regarding the application process. Do we require? I'm so sorry.
I just didn't want to move. I didn't want to move past that point of discussion. If you don't mind me jumping in there, I'm just thinking about Department of Recreation and Human Services and possibly finding a way if we made sure that there was a youth component to this, actually putting it through the DRHS so that youth could that's what they do. There's a whole, there's between Biz Kids and the Teen Center and the and rock paint division and all of those, but then using as Antonetta said, us actually making sure that call went out to the different spaces that also have youth, like the Avenue, like Center for Youth, et cetera, so that those youth had an opportunity to come through and register for this particular opportunity and be involved in some way, and not necessarily suggesting that one youth would actually, create a whole sculpture, but if it turned out that it was a sculpture, is there a youth component? Again, something that Sean Dunwoody has set precedent for throughout our city for decades, is how you actually create with the idea that it's not just me, the artist. There are a community of folks that will be helping, and in this case, youth, and involving them from the design all the way through the actual articulation of that piece.
Thank you, Rena. Exactly what I thought. There is, without a doubt, GRASA, which is a network of after-school programs and providers. They are a phenomenal organization. I don't know what our requirements are in our application but I'm going to say community partners is going to be a critical component, because what I don't want to see is an organization that is not within the community in this hierarchical way down at youth. It has to be an equitable approach. So you have GRASA, which is a network. You also have established after school program, the ASPIDA program. And Rena, my girl benefited from Summer of Opportunity. This could be a Summer of Opportunity program, because that ensures liability insurance, support systems. So we already have networks and systems. It's a matter of aligning the program grant with those. And I want to encourage all of our applications to show partnerships that are not transactional, but sustainable and long-term and trusted community partners. Currently, I'm reading the Wilson Foundation grant reviews, and I will tell you, if there is not a community partner that is vetted and working at that level, they're not going to get their money, because they're not doing what the actual grant requires them. So I want to ensure that our grant application also says that, that we write it into the grant, the language, community partners, sustainable relationships, all of these pieces. And those programs already exist. Summer of Opportunity was a great program. My daughter benefited from Serena. And I say that because that's already established. There's a network and a system already in place. We can definitely connect the resources. That's a big challenge in our city. We have great resources. We just haven't connected them. Scaffolding steps up towards success.
Yes, yes, I love that idea of partnership in the community, because my daughter went to Biz Kids for 1 week last year, and the application process was through our center online. And there was like a form that the parents had to fill out, and there's a waiver form through that. And because they got money from Biz Kids, depending on how much they got during the week, and I had to fill out like a W-9 or W-10 form as a parent. So partnering with them or collaborating with them with a similar application process or something that's maybe connected with our centers, because that is able to show that the kids and the family live in the city. Because if you sign up and you're outside of the city, it doesn't allow to do some things for free. So yeah, they do have a good application process. And then if Arts Bloom or whatever that we need to do, we can ask more questions as needed, if that helps with the insurance reasonings or whatnot. So yes.
Okay, this is helpful. I think it's also making me think that on the capital side, we're talking youth. So obviously there's going to be an artist at the center of that, then working with youth. If we have anything around the city logo anniversary, I'm actually kind of thinking maybe in Arts Bloom, if we're doing if there's any temporary art, we can say that would be around, we could have youth doing things around the city logo, inspired by the city logo, and maybe have like an art show for youth art, because that's temporary art, right? If we had like an art show, does that make sense to everyone? I'm kind of seeing that distinction of, youth created and accessible art through the temporary art part of Arts Bloom versus the capital, which is the permanent, where youth are kind of supporting, and we're working with local providers, right? And partners to select those youth through an application process. Okay. This is all very good.
I'm not sure if we could figure this out today, just because of time, but I think we do need to dig a little bit deeper into the practical reality of what does that actually look like to involve young people in the creation of capital art.
Yeah.
But if there's some kind of involvement, what does it look like, and what are the limitations around it?
For sure. I just want to be clear that that in that there would be an artist, right, who's responsible for the installation, but being supported by youth, right? I just want to make sure that's clear. Like I don't think any of us are talking about youth actually conceptualizing and then sourcing materials and installing it, right? There's an artist at the center of that who's kind of a mentor to the youth that are assisting with it.
Yes, youth can work in partnership with artists without it being a top-down approach where it's the artist's project and the youth are just being, brought in to say, hey, do you want red or blue? So I think, I think one of the things that we probably should look at is, because it does get very complicated once you start bringing in youth, is what resources we already have within the city. Like, that's why I brought up Department of Recreation and Human Services, because whatever that process is that opens that up to any youth to be able to participate, it already encompasses legal, insurance, whatever, resources have been designated in the budget to have those youth present in place. So it shouldn't be an added cost. And then we look at community partners as a way to make sure that youth, that more youth are represented. We're not just going to a set group of youth that are already within, within the city. For example, going to the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council and saying, you guys are it, how do we just, create that process through DRHS and so that it can we can cover a lot of the bases that we don't have to reinvent them,
Okay,
That's
so just to clarify though, Rena, in that scenario that you described, are you picturing that the youth involvement is more to do with them understanding and engaging the process of designing and constructing physical art, or is it more to do with them being involved with the substance or the theme or the message of the piece itself, or both?
I think it's both. It's all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all. And I keep thinking of residencies in that sense, or apprenticeships even. The idea that, we create this opportunity, it involves, let's just call it an apprenticeship for now, with multiple youth, and they have the ability to be through it, but to join it, but it goes through DRHS, and then it also has to depend on how comfortable that artist is working with youth. And I think that also should be really clear in the application process, that we want to see youth as partners. And so what is your experience like working directly with youth and community to create?
Rena, that is such a critical component to successful outcomes with young people. They have to have that emotional intelligence capacity, restorative justice. I would love to see that be part of what is their experience and what are their successes, and also what are their failures? What did they learn from? So I think it's an important element. Everyone can't teach and work with youth. That is the reality. So we want to make sure that who we are hiring to represent the city's arts is vetted in that way as well. Thank you for bringing that up. That is such a critical component to successful outcomes for young people to feel successful.
Okay, thank you so much for that. It's really helpful insights. With our short time that we have left, I want to go ahead and I don't know that we're going to get to decision on if we had time, we wanted to talk about AC3 membership process. We're not going to formalize it so much that we are an arts commission, because we're going to build an arts commission, but we do want, this initially came up with the acknowledgement that there are quite a few AC3 members that may be, this is volunteer, and we've been doing it a couple years. We want to give folks the option to step off the committee if they, are pressed for time. And in that, then we would need to find replacements. So, Annette, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, or if I know you're kind of multitasking right now. I think you're doing a training while
Absolutely.
reading.
Yeah, I
do.
am, so don't tell my boss, but I am paying attention. So part of what, when Thomas, Sean, and I sat down and looked at who in our community would be a contributing, active, responsive, engaged community partner on this path, two things we looked at. Are they an actual artist? Because we felt that that was critical for them to have an art background. And are they activists beyond their own art organization? And I'm going to say that again. Are they advocating beyond their own art organization? So I think those are the fundamental, I know those are the fundamental standards with which Thomas, Sean, and I chose all of you. And trust me, there were 20-something names on that list when we went back to the city. So the fact that you're all sitting here means that you are active artists and that you're advocating beyond your own organizational needs. My belief is that should be a standard moving forward, because we don't want this to turn into some sort of nepotism that happens where you're only hiring your own friends or your own group of people, but expanding beyond our circle and inviting those others. So we think empowering you all to choose who is coming on as you come off and why you think that they would make a good choice and how they could contribute to the larger discussion of arts in our city. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you. And I'd love to hear from others as well.
To be clear too, we're not saying there's term limits, right? We want to be able to email each individual to say, are you happy? Do you still have the space to volunteer to be on this committee? So an intro question is, right now we're at 12 members, 12 public members. Is that an okay number? And then it's the broader question of, if we do have openings, how would we fill them? So yeah, just to frame that.
And also just to clarify, this is not something that we need to figure out and decide today. We're just planting the seed for that conversation. We'd really like to have the other 2 co-chairs be here as part of that conversation, but just something to think about, and we could take initial thoughts on it.
And I think generally it would be, I think what Annette was referring to is it sounds like there would be kind of potentially a nomination process, and then folks could potentially vote, or that's kind of what the discussion is, right? Like what that could look like. So chew on that, because that's a big picture question, right? And maybe it would be helpful if I actually went ahead and emailed members now to ask, right? Because maybe it would be helpful if we even know if there's going to be any openings beyond the 12 members that we're at, right? So, because it might be a moot point. Maybe I reach out to everyone who's currently on, and maybe everyone says, I'm good, I have the time, I still want to volunteer, and then it might be a moot point. So we'll follow up in the next meeting on that.
Question, do we still have the same number that we started with? Have we had a few people drop off?
Yeah, we started at 15.
Okay.
So we've had 3 drop off.
Okay. I was just trying to remember that correctly. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's a question too, is do we want to keep it at 15 or do we want to keep it at the current 12? Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Oh, Rena asked if that includes co-chairs. It does include co-chairs, yes. Was there?
Yeah, one of the things when we're on Rec Arts United, when we're bringing in new people, we really check to make sure that we are looking not just at that we're looking at diversity, like in all terms, like we're looking at for disability advocates, we're looking for a variety of gender representation, we're looking across cultures, we're looking, and then we also look and make sure we've got literary arts, we've got theater arts, we've got visual arts, we've got other performing arts, we've got so we when we add people on for Rutgers United, we very specifically and deliberately look and see who's here already and what's missing. So I think that, and that intentionality has been really beneficial for us. So I think if we're talking about bringing new folks in, and then once we have that long list of names, we bring it to everybody and be like, okay, all of these people give us a tentative yes. As a group, where are the slots that we really need filled the most? And then we go back to that long list and be like, hi, do you want to join it? So that's a little bit of the process for what we do.
Thank you, Amanda. That's helpful. Okay, we're at 11 o'clock. Thank you all for your time and for this great conversation. I'll follow up with notes and with the link to the recording to share with whoever you'd like to share it with. And yeah, we'll follow up, and I look forward to continuing the conversation in December.